this one? Is it on?
It's on. Is it on? Is it live?
I don't think so. Hello?
Try it.
Hello. Oh yeah. Okay.
Is that better?
Can you hear in the kitchen, Ananya?
Not so much.
Excuse me.
Try again.
Can you hear now?
Yeah.
Hello, Salt Lake City. What is the song?
74.
Excuse me.
Shri Guru Charana Spiritual master are the abode of pure devotional service. I bow down to those lotus feet with great care and attention. My dear brother, my dear mind, it is through the grace of the spiritual master that we cross over this material world.
Make the teachings from the lotus mouth of the spiritual master one with your heart and do not desire anything else. Attachment to the lotus feet of the spiritual master is the best means of spiritual advancement. By his mercy, all desires of spiritual perfections are fulfilled.
He who has given me the gift of transcendental vision is my Lord. Birth after birth, by his mercy divine knowledge is revealed within the heart, bestowing love and devotion and destroying ignorance. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character.
O spiritual master, ocean of mercy, and friend of the fallen souls, you are the teacher of everyone and the life of all people. O master, be merciful unto me, and give me the shade of your lotus feet. May your glories now be proclaimed throughout the three worlds.
I have surrendered unto your fearless lotus feet. Please give your mercy. O Sri Gurudev, Savior of the fallen, please give me your mercy. You are the Savior of the lowly fallen souls. All glories to you, Sri Gurudev.
Haribol. Understanding Guru is not different from understanding something about Krishna, because now we're just beginning our journey and we're just understanding something. Something's coming to us. We know that we feel a change, so much change every day actually. Something new and something extremely interesting is coming, and we are learning so many things. But when Narottam Das Thakur is saying, ocean of mercy, then, as we're coming into the plane of surrender, then we can understand what it means that someone is an ocean of mercy. So we are just fledglings, just beginning this process. But just like Bhagavad-Gita, every week we read the same verses, chapter after chapter, then over again, starting over again. So many years we've been doing this. But every single time we have a Bhagavad-Gita class, we are completely astonished by something wonderful that we've read many times before, but we didn't get that particular understanding about something. Oh, Maharaj is here. So that's how the spiritual master is also. He's in that same kind of category, that we will always, by worshipping such a personality, understand deeper and deeply what it is to be in touch with the ocean of mercy. Maharaj Dandavad, Maharaj, Nyasi Maharaja ki jai. Well, here you are.
Yes, I'm trying to show up on Wednesdays now.
Oh, and Jayadev Prabhu picked you up?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
and Sudar's coming too soon, but he was a little late, so I had to go.
Okay. I think, okay, so Maharaj, we're just saying,
I tried.
You have a book there, Maharaj? Chapter. Oh,
I got it.
Here. Chapter 16 is where we are now.
Okay, let me get my specs on.
Jai, the hidden treasure of the sweet absolute ki. Jai.
Jai.
Jai, Srila Bhakti Raksak Sridhar Dev-Goswami Maharaj ki.
Joy.
Jai. Jai, Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev-Goswami Maharaj ki.
Joy.
Jai, Shri Krishna and Arjun ki. Jai.
What page again?
This is 271. I mean, it's chapter 16, Maharaj.
Okay.
Daivasura Sampad Vibhaga Yoga, the godly and ungodly natures.
We're doing on chapter 16 this week?
What was that?
Chapter 16?
I thought so.
I thought we were on chapter.
Oh, am I wrong?
We're starting this. Oh, I believe.
I think 16 is right.
16,
I think
right?
it. Yeah, I remember you being excited or somebody being excited.
Yeah, you're
But
right.
was that last week or the week before? I don't know.
Oh, what was last week?
Last week must have been 15.
Hey, whoa.
I have a horrible.
Alright,
I've got to just
I
concentrate
remember
and
being
remember.
excited.
But this is where the bookmark was.
Yeah, we discussed the Supreme Person. That was 16.
Ah, very good. Right, exactly.
So it is.
All right, it is 16. I don't have my glasses, but
Oh,
Okay.
no, I didn't bring them. I went for a walk and then I thought, oh, I saw how late it was, so I just walked to the temple, but I didn't have my glasses.
Want to try mine?
Oh, Maharaj, I think I'll
Oh,
be
you
okay.
can read okay?
I think I'll be okay.
Okay, cool.
Sri Bhagavad-Gita, this is chapter 16, the godly and ungodly natures. Maharaj, do you want to start? Sorry.
Yes.
Where's that?
Joy.
What page?
272.
72, thank you.
Is it working? Sure, I'll just pass this over.
No, this is working.
It's kind of wrapped around. Oh, okay. So Maharaj is going to start.
Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Abhayam Sakasam Siddhir Jnana Yoga Vyavastita Dhanam Dhammascha Yagyascha Svadhyayascha Arjavam Ahimsa Satyam Akrodash Tyaga Shantira Vaishnam Dainante Svalopatram Mardavam Vir Achapalam Tijachama Ditikshalcham Aradho Natamanita Bhavanti Sampadam Daivam Avijatasya Bharata. We may miss it a bit because it's in Sanskrit, but actually these are all very poetic verses. And not only the way this is done is like so amazing that, you know, not only is it like poetic in terms of the word like juxtapositions, but also it's poetic in terms of the actual word usage. There's a very, like, if you look at this very carefully, like somewhat in terms of Sanskrit language, but also just in terms of general, the general nature of languages, you can see that these are very like advanced and developed like use of language. The Sanskrit use of language, like when I was at university, I was a little surprised to hear, not totally because I had heard this before, but they consider that Sanskrit language and the structure of Sanskrit language, the grammar and so forth, is the source of all languages and the grammar within all languages. You know, this is like kind of understood in linguistic places in academia, from, you know, Harvard all over the East Coast to the West Coast, Stanford, and all the big universities. They all understand that, you know, Sanskrit is like the original language and the basis for the structure of grammar. Though they generally say, well, there must have been some language before Sanskrit, because how could this have just produced from nowhere? They're atheists, so they can't understand. This has like been revealed from above. They can't figure that out. That's all possible. But we hear from our gurus, and we kind of understand just like I can't remember the word. Just like based on the structure and the sense of feeling that we have within about the nature of languages, we can understand ourselves that that about Sanskrit, that it's so amazingly arranged and so deeply presented. I mean, I studied this at university for 3 years, and though most of my professors, surprisingly or unsurprisingly, were atheists, and but still, they, as linguists, they had some deep appreciation for the nature of Sanskrit, though they couldn't connect it with any like religious foundation, which is, you know, I always told them, it's very unfortunate that you can't see that, because that's the reality. And as a, you know, as a proper scholar, you should look at that. I mean, why don't scholars look at the basis presented by religious experts who have, like, over time studied this for like practically millennia, and still they discard that because they don't accept the basis of the religious approach, which is unfortunate. Because like I said, if they're scholars, they should consider the religious approach and consider the approach of the non-religious equally, but they don't. As I've always told Srilekha Devi that they just are blind in that way, unfortunately. Okay, so I'm reading verse 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
Could you give me some water, Didi? I'm kind of, my teeth are sticking. The Supreme Lord said, O Bharata, these are the qualities of a person born of a godly nature: fearlessness, gracious heartedness, absorption in self-knowledge, generosity, sense control, sacrifice, study of the Vedas, austerity, sincerity, nonviolence, truthfulness, freedom from anger, worldly detachment, tranquility, disinclination to see the faults of others, compassion, freedom from greed, gentleness, modesty, steadfastness, vigor, forgiveness, patience, purity, and freedom from malice and egoism.
Wow.
So this is quite a list to digest. But if we look around ourselves amongst the devotees, we'll see that these things are like almost naturally manifesting, not a result of, you know, individually trying to cultivate each particular area of this list of good qualities, but rather manifests in a clear way based on our absorption in the attempt at devotional service. Even the attempt is enough for these things to happen. That's like the power of devotion. We may ourselves feel like, you know, we don't really have much devotion, but at least we're trying. And, you know, we understand, you know, Krishna, God, sees that. And based on our sincere attempts to try, so many things manifest that change our lives, that make us, you know, see things in a very different perspective than before, that, you know, give us a kind of a new lease on life, where we understand that life that's within us is actually eternal, and life within us has gone on, who knows since when, but at the same time will go on in the future. And we learn very clearly from our Guru's instructions that based on our activities in this life, and to some degree in previous lives, we'll take a birth in future lives. But simultaneously, they tell us that as we progress in spiritual life, we will more and more be able to like erase the reactions that are due to our previous bad past activities. Just kind of happens in a very natural way, and like before you know it, your life is different, and your life has to do with totally different objective than you've ever had before, and an objective that reaches beyond even the duration of this body and mind. So it's just a wonderful, amazing experience, and I think that the potential of that realization and the clarity of that realization comes more and more to us as we practice devotion in like measured degrees. So we begin to see it, and slowly we see it clearer and clearer and clearer, as we progress. And, eventually we'll see it with full clarity, depending on our own activities and our own sincerity and so many factors. That duration of time may vary, even radically. But the fact is, if we apply ourselves with sincerity and kind of focus ourselves on our path of life, we'll reach that destination. We not only, like when we hear something from our gurus, it's not just a verbal transmission, like in ordinary, like academics or something. You read it, you study it, you try to understand it, and you get some understanding. But the understanding that comes by the transmission from the predecessor gurus actually comes from above, and the action that results, the internal reaction within ourselves that results, brings about a clearly perceivable transition in our lives, and it just continues. And the amazing thing about Krishna consciousness is that it continues even after this body. And not only that, but even after maybe so many bodies we finally reach perfection, it continues to go on in amazing ways as we grow closer and closer in our relationship with Krishna, the Absolute Truth. And it's just amazing possibility we have in our futures. And the more that we apply ourselves in that direction, the more that will become very real for us. So real, in fact, that the so-called reality of the temporary world kind of fades away, and you see more and more how what we thought was reality before is just really accumulation of so many temporary distractions. And the real purpose of life, beyond just fulfilling the bodily senses, engaging the material mind and intellect in so-called stimulating activity. There's so much more to that. And all we have to do is apply ourselves to Krishna consciousness, pray to our gurus, and gradually that will become a living reality for us. And that's the greatest hope. So, who's next? Are we done?
You should read the Sanskrit also. I'll take the microphone, Maharaj.
Oh, what?
It's in your lap.
Oh. What are we doing?
So we'll go around, I think.
Yeah,
We'll just read the Sanskrit together.
okay.
4, 5, and 6.
Krodha-ayusham evacha ajnanam cha vijatasya partha sampadam asurim daivi sampadi mokshaya nibandhaya asuri mata mashucha sapadam daivam avijato sipandava Wow Bhuta Sargau Cha Daiva Asura Cha Daivo Vistasara Prokta Asuram Partame Srinu.
O Partha, these are the qualities of a person born of an ungodly nature: pride, conceit, egoism, anger, cruelty, and ignorance. The godly qualities have been described as the cause of liberation, and the ungodly qualities have been described as the cause of bondage. O Pandava, do not fear, for you are born of godly nature. O Partha. In this world, the living beings are of two natures, the godly and the ungodly. I have elaborately described the godly nature to you. So now, hear from me about the ungodly.
I remember first reading this and thinking, wow, what luck. The godly, the qualities of the godly nature are a lot greater than the qualities of the the qualities of the ungodly nature. Wow, we're so lucky.
Just wait till Krishna gets really into the ungodly. Yeah, not pretty. It's funny because there's a lot that comes out of these 6 words. Pride, conceit, egoism, anger, cruelty, and ignorance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
those
many
are,
levels.
pathways down into some horrible places. I also think it's very interesting in the first 3 verses, you know, so many of these words, they actually don't exist in a lot of languages. There's a tremendous sophistication that's necessary to even speak these qualities. And each one of them, you know, I personally really like to look at these verses, 1, 2, 3, because each one of these qualities is such a nice thing to bathe your mind in and to really ponder what it is and what it means to be like that. You know, these are really rich ideas. And it's really nice to sort of wash your mind in these qualities. Okay, verse 7. Krishna's about to get into that. I elaborately described the godly qualities. A lot of really nice words in 3 verses. And we're going to really get into the ungodly qualities. Prapritim cha nivritim cha jalana vidurasura na shaucham na vichacharo na satyam teshu vidyate asatyam apratishthante jagadahurishwaram aparasparasambhutam kimanyat kama hetukam etam drishtim avashtavya Nashtatmano Babudhaya Prabhavantyugra Karmana Shriyaya Jagato Gita.
The ungodly cannot distinguish between right and wrong action. No purity, good practices, or truthfulness can be found in them. The persons of ungodly nature say the world is without truth, blameless, godless, baseless, godless, and that everything is born of male and female union. They say that life has no purpose beyond lust. Holding such a view, the demons, depraved and of low intelligence, become powerful and engage in cruel, inauspicious acts of destruction of the world.
This is like Krishna speaking this 3, 4, 5,000 years ago, yet it's, when we read this, and we can see that the ungodliness nature, you can practically like see it and feel it all around us in this society. So even though earlier societies may have been less so overwhelmed by ungodliness, still they were there in human nature, and Krishna very perfectly has perceived this and is showing to us the distinction between being godly and being ungodly, so that we can have some consciousness of making a clear-headed decision in which direction to go with our lives, to clearly perceive how different activities are going to entangle us and bring us into lower consciousness, and other activities will purify us and bring us into higher consciousness. So it's like the specific function of human life is to be able to perceive these things, and not only that, but be able to make clear choices as to which direction we're gonna go with our life. You know, unlike any other species on the planet, none of them can really perceive these things. But in human life, we have that unique perception that enables us to begin to be able to distinguish between the different types of activities that bring results that will, in terms of future births, bring us either down or up. And that's like the one of the like amazing realizations that is unlocked here in Bhagavad-Gita.
I can kind of relate a story. It's interesting. At least it was interesting for me to experience. One of my I hesitate to say it, it's just so disgusting.
Come on.
One of my philosophy professors, he was actually the most disgusting person I've ever met around.
I can't really hear you say.
One of your philosophy professors.
And he used to wear silk shirts every day, and he would sweat out his belly sweat. Every time his belly would get all wet and clad. It was so gross. Anyways, this guy, I remember having discussions with him. I actually could not contemplate some of these things that they were trying to brainwash me with, which is basically that there is no truth, that there is no right and wrong, there is no up and down, there is no any, and I couldn't even believe that that's what they were like trying to say. But that is 100% like the intended like worldview that is meant to be given to people. That everything is relative, there is no truth. It's all just dependent on whatever you think. There is no right, there is no wrong. And the only opportunity you have to influence behavior is through force.
But why would you force someone when there's no right and wrong?
Because you want something.
It's your will.
It's
I mean,
will.
Sure, can you imagine, in relation to all those people sitting in that class, you were able to perceive these things.
Well, I
The
actually
others had
went
no
to his
foundation.
office hours, and I would like, controlling my gag reflex. And yeah, I mean, I actually was like, I just couldn't get it. It actually just, like, it never occurred to me that there was like a worldview where there's literally nothing
Yeah.
and there's no point.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's sold as something that's like daring and advanced and like
Yeah.
Yeah.
like breaking
Right.
like typical modes of thinking. But it's
Right.
really like something really basic and
Yeah.
animalistic that we
Like a
want.
dog.
The high
A
point of
dog
human
just lives like
progression.
that.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, the end result of it is, I think there's two kinds of people that come out of education like that. People who are immediately looking to the leaders of society to tell them what is or is not okay in this particular societal time, and it has no basis or anything. They just want to know, oh, we're having a war. Who do I fight for? It's really like Orwellian, truly. And in Orwell's book, it's like Oceania and East Asia, and like at one point they tell the population, Oceania is bad, word for East Asia. And then like the next day they download and dump and erase all the other stuff that Oceania was bad, and they're like, Oceania is good, East Asia's bad. And everyone just goes along with it. And that's what the outcome of this kind of education is. Or the second kind of person is a person who just becomes a total sociopath and a psychopath. Because they just go, oh, there's no truth. The only truth is my own urges, so I'm just going to do what I want. And Krishna says that. If you hold such a view, what are you going to be? You just want to become powerful. And then you're going to do the cruelest things to other people just to gain your whim. Because why not?
Right.
I remember questioning some of my professors, like, if this is all true, why are you doing this? And they were like, we're trying to reach people with the understanding that blah, blah. And it made clear they have no real foundational beliefs or anything. They
Yeah,
just,
I got into this like semantic discussion with this guy because I was like, Well, if there's no truth, then isn't it a truth to say there is no truth?
Yeah.
When you sort of-
Total hypocrisy,
Then that
right?
becomes like an absolute truth.
Yeah,
When you're saying there's no absolutes.
exactly.
You know what I mean? It's like total like
But they
car
can't,
crash.
they can't avoid that level of perception,
Yeah.
but they claim that they can, but they can't.
Right. But they're too cowardly to admit that, to just say, well, you're saying that the absolute you're making an absolute statement that there's no absolute truth. But that's an absolute statement. So instead of just talking like that, why don't we just, since we're both making absolute statements, let's just put the facts on the table and discuss them like in a gentlemanly and a brave way, not a cowardly way. That, it's like
Yeah, and you get into really horrible
manipulation.
discussions where it's like, okay, I like your shoes. Why should I not shoot you in the head and take them?
Yeah, why not?
Right? And it's like, you think you can't distinguish between right and wrong. Well, if you have a worldview like that, then the only answer can be is, well, you're going to jail.
Yeah.
It's like, okay,
It's
so
not my self-interest.
it's not that it's wrong, it's that there's a possibility of a worse outcome. That's all. And that is a scary thing, because then these people, when they're in a place where they're not fearful, are scary people. KB, can you read, or how's your eyes doing?
Okay.
All right. Okay, so we're going to read 10, 11, and 12. Kamam ashrita shmuram dambhamana madanvita mohagrihi vasagraham pravartante shuchirata Chintamakarinam cha pradayantam upashrita kamopabhoga arma vitavaditi nishchita ashaprasha shatervataha kamaprodha parayana vihante kamabhogatam anyayena sanchayam. Okay. Giving themselves up to the delusion of insatiable desires for mundane enjoyment. Such demons, full of vanity, pride, and arrogance, engage in grave malpractices. Until death they remain burdened with endless cares. They think that mundane enjoyment is the goal of life, bound by hundreds of wishes, and overcome with desire and anger. They endeavor to amass wealth unlawfully to fulfill their desires. It's clearly a pretty old song.
Yeah, it's so appropriate to today. You can just see it. It's just so clear that these people are, based on their consciousness that's become diverted into materialism, they're just like completely lost and completely actually bound up by all these desires that drive them in the direction of materialistic fulfillment. They think that it's going to free them, but actually it just binds them more. And by death, then they have to take a birth based on their, their sinful activities in this life, and they wind up in even a worse position where they have even more of an inclination to engage in this. And as we descend in the ladder of downward progression into the material world, it becomes like more and more difficult to perceive reality as it is. So the entanglements lead to more entanglements, whereas we're in the middle range. So our spiritual activities naturally lead to more spiritual activities, and we naturally go upwards. That's why, in the human life, we have the chance to make these discriminations, and those who can't perceive that or refuse to do that, they're just very unfortunate.
Well, you can see there's two different worldviews, and they're both sort of inevitable in where they go. One is a worldview, and you can see this in all religions actually, because there's some regulation, right? Like you can read, like even if you look at a fairly simple religion like Islam, there's good regulations, okay? And there's all kinds of rules in the hadith and all these other kinds of things where it's like people who could become really horrible people are regulated in some way. And now they have to engage in an internal battle where they have an urge to do something and some higher regulation is saying, don't do that.
Yeah.
And now they have to go, oh, and struggle. And now what does that mean? Now you're entering into the world of consciousness, where you understand one part of you wants to run in one direction, and a deeper part of you can control that, right? Now you're on an upward path, right? And Krishna says, ultimately the soul is known by one who is self-controlled. Why? Because the soul ultimately has to assert control over the mind and body, right? And any path that is worshiping the Lord in any kind of even hazy form is going on an upward journey of self-control and ultimately orienting yourself to a higher purpose. And this is the exact opposite. So now these people don't believe anything. Nothing is true. The only strong base of reality is lust. Now I've got a million desires. They give themselves up to them. That's who I am. Right? Can you imagine if every mental urge that came into your mind was you? Every urge for gratification is you. And now you give yourself up to that. It is bad.
It is like such a key inversion. Like I remember that like just the idea that like by service and by like regulation you are gaining freedom. You know, that's a very counterintuitive idea. It's a very understandable confusion, you know, how people can get bound up in it. And it's, you know, it's only by revelation that we know better than that, you know, and like but I really liked what you said, Maharaj, about how this is all entangling, you know, because this is put forth as something that is like liberating, you know, you're extinguishing your conscience, you're getting rid of all these bindings that are tying you down.
What a trap, huh?
But yeah, it's a complete trap, you know, you become bound by all the desires that you think you're dominating. It's really
That's
really
why
sad.
desire and anger just seem to always be in the same sentence, because desire leads to frustration. Ultimately, it's just going to make you mad, because
And that's where the cruelty comes in,
then you get cruel, because you're blaming the environment. And then somebody who has everything. We were talking about this morning in the Prasadam. Somebody who's really, like you were telling that story on Sunday, that was a great story about that football player, that
Deion
big
Sanders.
athlete.
Actually, what a really beautiful testimony.
And he's got everything. Like when you don't have everything, you can think, oh, I'm miserable because I don't have that.
Yeah.
But when you have everything and you're still miserable, that's a pretty heavy day.
I remember my dad used to work for this guy who was a billionaire. He was in hospice care, so he had real estate and he had medicine, and he was fabulously wealthy. And my dad likes to relate that when he came to that point, when he had everything that he could possibly want, it brought him extreme anguish to cut his employees' checks every week. Because the idea of giving someone else a little bit of what he's got, that is what becomes intolerable to him.
That's so interesting.
Again, what a trap, man.
Hare Krishna.
And Prahlad Maharaj in the Bhagavatam, you know, his father was Hiranyakashipu. When he snapped his fingers, all the demigods came to pour his tea. I mean, he was very, very powerful. And Prahlad said, there is no more miserable living being within the universe. Constant rage and frustration. It's very heavy.
Yeah, there's a few clips of Prince Charles. Every time he travels, he brings his entire bed from his home in the castle with him, shipped on an airplane. Broken down, yeah, because that's the only bed he can sleep in.
Oh my God.
And this guy's level of rage, I mean, there's a few like clips that people have smuggled out. They're actually insane about like, did somebody cut his nails right? and all this stuff where it's like every one of these desires becomes so dominantly in control of you that you can't handle any of them not being fully satisfied in just the right way of whatever your mind came up with. You just become literally the opposite of what you think. You think you're going toward freedom and you can do whatever your mind says, and you become this like absolutely brittle madman.
Yeah, like when you're really, really sick and every little thing hurts, like every sound hurts, everything hurts, you become like hyper, you know, I can't handle anything in the environment at all. But you know what I was thinking? How Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Supata Vipata Nahi Jani. That is like the divine positive plane, because, you know, we are so small and we want to progress in the spiritual life. And so we are completely dependent on divine revelation. That is a sweet kind of
That's a way
sweetness.
deeper contemplation, because you're moving out of
exactly the opposite.
legislation. Now you're moving into what does Krishna want.
So
And that divine
there's freedom,
uncertainty.
actually.
Yes. Hare Krishna. Okay.
Did I already talk about how the different elements of Islam, Judaism, and Christianity are easily seen when we develop in Krishna consciousness? You can perceive what's there in substance and in a developmental substance. So we accept the validity of Islam, Christianity, Judaism, but we can see it in terms of progression in development of consciousness. So it's not to downgrade them or anything. It just shows that different societies in different times and circumstance require different presentations of the absolute truth so that they can begin to follow on that path. And we read that in the scriptures, just like Christ has come at a certain time and place to present a certain particular message. Even though now we know he went to India and heard so many directions and understandings that may have been way beyond what he was actually giving, but he knew the exact presentation for the time and circumstance for those particular people. And that's what he was given, charged by Krishna, by God, to present and give according to the time and circumstance, and also according to the societal progressions that would even lead us to the present day, wherein his teachings still apply, and they apply in a genuine way where people are actually able to get some relief from the materialistic world. And we see that with, as we progress a little bit in Krishna consciousness, because all spiritual progress, if there's one God, it has to be singularly connected. So as we progress, we can see the elements of truth that are there in all these aspects and understanding about God and our religious duty to God. It just is, it's just like, shown. As we awaken in consciousness and grow in our consciousness, we're able to see all these different things. And rather than imbue some kind of consciousness of, well, we're superior or something, it rather imbues a consciousness that gives great respect to those genuine perceptions of the absolute truth, even seen in a different context. And we pray, actually in our prayers, we pray for everyone's progressive development in God consciousness, Krishna consciousness, according to their particular time and space circumstance.
Joy. Okay, then 13. 13. Idam adya maya labdham, idam prapsye manoratham, idam astidam apine, bhavishyati punarjanam, asamaya tatashastru, hanishye chaparanapi, Ishvaraham aham bhogi,
Chitoham balavam sukhi Adyopi janamasmi Konyosti sadrisho maya Yakshedashyami modishya Ajagyana vimohita.
Okay, can you grab this?
Grab this.
Rap. This is like a rap. These next 3 shlokas are like a rap song.
Anyway, yeah, also wrap it up now.
You'll see what he means when you read
Now I
them.
remember.
They're like how
I think
rappers
I
talk.
remember I got that question years ago.
Did wealthy person say, today got what I wanted, and tomorrow I will also get what I want. And this is my wealth. I will have even more in the future. I have destroyed one enemy, and I will destroy others. I am successful, powerful, and happy. I am wealthy and aristocratic. Who can compare with me? I shall perform sacrifice, give charity, and enjoy myself. Thus, they are all deluded by ignorance.
I like how he says happy, you know, like in your conditioned state, you're so like caught up in illusion that you really think that is what happiness is.
And it's very, very dependent on the perception of others. They have to see me as happy, and then I have confirmation. If they don't see me as happy, they're my enemy. Why? Because that is shaking my view of myself.
That's why happiness is so relative in the material world. If you look across the world, there are actually different standards of happiness, and it's based on cultural surroundings and previous history and so many things like that. But ultimately, beyond the plane of material happiness, there's a plane of spiritual happiness that actually exceeds any experience of material happiness that's based on simply a progression of perception of the relative condition of we as we are engaged in materialistic activities. There's so much more to be found in a spiritual perception of happiness, but that is only accessible when one realizes that the main thrust of my life should not be material acquisition, but the main thrust of my life should be a surrender and spiritual progress towards the stage of pure devotion to the Supreme. In that endeavor, and that endeavor is present everywhere in different degrees of religious progress. So within that endeavor, there's always some experience of a realization. There are so many things beyond the temporary materialistic acquisitional nature.
Yeah, very different.
Yeah, it's a whole different experience. And people, go ahead, Didi.
No, I'm sorry, Maharaj.
No, it's okay. I'm kind of done.
I was just hearing Srila when I was walking in the park. I was listening to Gurudev talking about this. He was saying we hear from the great souls about the truth, and then we must practice that. But ultimately, we're depending upon the eyes which the Lord will give us to see these things clearly. We're very much dependent like that. We're not just going to put one and one together and come to connection with the infinite. It's really a beautiful thing what he was saying. We're bowing down to the deity, but we're actually coming to show my fallen self to you, and you may show me something about the infinite. Otherwise, there's no possibility for me, a Divya Gyan. So this is very, very different than this mechanical process of I do that and then this is going to happen. It has to come to that plane of affection and surrender. Then the infinite is so merciful by nature. He's so merciful. but as a whole change of heart. And this is what I was just listening to Gurudev talking about, that it's something along the lines that you were bringing up, Maharaj. Haribol. Here we go. Chapter.
Just one thing I want to mention. I think it's very helpful personally. I found this very helpful in my life. I heard this one psychologist saying, if you give in to what you want to do all the time, you will go to hell with rapidity and delight. And I thought that was really beautifully said. It's not that when you get in this position where you're just doing whatever you want, you're trying to gratify every urge, that you're like, man, I'm really losing control of myself. No. What happens is you're just like, oh my God, I am so great. I am actually amazing. I'm even amazing myself. Wow. You know, like you're totally full of like self-glorification as you run toward hell. And then you start running faster because you're like, oh my God, I really
This is fantastic.
fast. You know.
So you remember that psychologist who that was?
It was Jordan Peterson.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah. That struck me. That just the way that was phrased was like, you let yourself go, you don't know how fast you can just turn into a basket case. And the whole time you're going to be thinking how great you are. Hare Krishna. Oh, okay, 16. Aneka chitta vibhranta moha jala samavita prasakta kama bhogeshu vatanti narakeshu chao atma sambhavita stabha dhanamana madhavita yajante nama yagyaiste dambhena vidhi purvakam ahankaram balam darpam kamam krodham cha samshrita Mamatma paradeshu pravishanto yasuyaka.
Their minds full of vain thoughts, caught in the net of illusion and engrossed in mundane enjoyment, such ungodly persons fall to a full hell.
Fall to a foul hell.
Fall to a foul hell.
That's a rough one for Russian speakers, right?
What is foul hell?
Foul means like disgusting.
So not a good hell.
Not a great hell. One of the bad ones.
Not one of those good hells.
Not one of those pleasant hells.
You're right.
Conceited, obstinate, and intoxicated by wealth and grandeur, ignoring the scriptural injunctions, these demons make a hypocritical show of sacrifices. Given to egoism, pomp and power, lust and anger, they are resentful of me, who am situated in their own and other bodies as a supersoul, and they ascribe faults to the good qualities of the saintly person.
I remember Srila Gurudev would use this pomp and power many times in his preaching. And, you know, yeah, I just clearly see now he got this from Bhagavad-Gita and the directions of Sri Krishna himself. Because it's so, like, applicable. If you look at the, like, materialist progression of society, you'll see that the upper levels all are based on some kind of pomp, position, and power experience or power reality of domination over others. It's all, it's all ordered and clearly delineated in Bhagavad-Gita, which is just, amazing. Every time we're able to get the glimpse of reality that comes from our extended experience of Bhagavad-Gita, we see these things that, are unmistakable truths, but which we've never been able to perceive before. The whole thing is, an amazing working relationship between the seeker, ourselves, and ultimately the Supreme Lord through the agency of our gurus. It's all like happening simultaneously. And the amazing thing is, each one of our gurus, we can't really see it or perceive it, but they're participating in it. It's like, I remember the example of when you're like on the operating table and you've got like 6 doctors around you. So we're kind of like that. We're on the operating table, we've got all these amazing souls that are dealing with our disease in such a, merciful and wonderful way. We're just, so lucky to have, been able to be placed on that operating table and been able to like continually submit and understand this is the best possible place for me to be in. We're just really, really lucky.
19, is it? Are we at 19 now?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Tanaham dvishatakuram samadeshu naradaman kshipam yajashanam asurishveva yonishu asurim yonimapana muddha janmani janmani manaprapyaiva kaunteya tato janmagatim Chikidim narakashidam Dvaram nasanamatmanaha Kamakroda satalobhas Tasmadeta talanjati Eta vimukta kaunteya Tamodvara isvir nara Acharatyanmana shreya Tanujati param gatim.
I continually cast the resentful, cruel, inauspicious, and decadent persons into demonic species in the cycle of birth and death. O Kuntiya, repeatedly taking birth in the demonic species, these deluded persons cannot come to me and they descend to lower and lower planes. Lust, anger, and greed are the 3 doors of hell, leading to self-destruction. So they must be abandoned. O Kuntiya, one who is liberated from these 3 doors of darkness strives for the benefit of the soul, by which he attains the supreme destination.
Jai.
I like the word decadent. Decadent, like you described, like dessert is decadent.
Yeah. Like
It
it's a
has-
good thing.
The root of decadent is the same as decay. It's like something which is so pleasurable that it eats away at you.
And it used to be, understood to be a very negative word.
Mhm.
But now it's practically like the way to praise something.
Mhm.
It's decadent. It's like you're going to really indulge now.
Yeah.
You're going to be like,
You're a man of high perception.
yeah, you're not going to be worried about anything. No hesitation. Oh dear. 23.
Also, it's important that it doesn't stop. Like these people Krishna's talking about are born in this plane, they're humans. Then the next they're going to the demonic species, where they're ignorant and the truth cannot find them. And then from there you go lower. You're in the infinite. You can go lower and lower, and your consciousness can become more and more and more and more bound. Like it doesn't stop. You don't just reach rock bottom in your human life. You can go to a whole nother species and go a lot deeper rock bottom.
I always wondered about this, and I asked Srila Govinda Maharaj about it, and oh my gosh, am I forgetting his response? His response was,
Wow, Krishna doesn't want us to hear that.
what's the subject? So what are we talking about?
We're talking about this,
Lower and lower
how you
species.
can just go lower and lower.
Lower,
Human to demon to...
Oh yeah, right. So Srila Govinda Maharaj said that that everyone has a particular destination ascribed by their activities, and some have a short duration of time, some have a very long duration of time, but everyone has a duration of time that will finalize, and they'll be returned to the middle platform,
Yes.
where again they have choices, up or down, up or down.
Yeah, that's
Which is
very
really amazing. Krishna is so
merciful.
kind.
Yeah.
There's no eternal hell in Krishna consciousness. Can you imagine just to perceive how horrible that is?
Yeah.
They're just going to put, half the society into hell forever?
half.
What kind of religion is
I
that?
think we're around 98 right now.
Anyway, whatever it is,
true.
it's absolutely bizarre.
It's actually, that's a kind of, for me, that's a kind of an atheistic view.
Mm.
Because I remember when I was a little girl, and I was sitting and talking to my sister, and talking about eternal hell, like forever and ever and ever, and I'm thinking, I didn't believe it. I was about 7 years old maybe, but I said, I don't think so. I think that if you really ask, that God will let you out.
Mm-hmm.
That you will get another chance. You're not just going to be there. I mean, my mother wouldn't do that
Yeah.
to me. What to speak of the supreme, all good personality of God? Like, no more chances, just one chance, and then you're out forever. It's like horrible to say that.
Yeah, it's a perception from previous life that, that to perceive the limitations of like Christian doctrine, that, they touch on genuine realization, but it only can be carried to a certain extent, especially when you consider the fate of the soul at the end of the duration of this body. I mean, to even consider that there's a God who would put people in eternal hell, it's just like,
That's
we
the guy
read
in
God
charge.
is merciful, God is kind. How is that possible? It just doesn't jive with the general perception and understanding of God, even within Christianity. It's like, it's not like that. God always gives you another chance. And where do you find the philosophical expression of those other chances? You find it indicated throughout all the scriptures in the world, but only clearly delineated in India.
That's right.
Because there's a higher understanding and realization that has come as a result of, thousands of years of spiritual civilization, and thousands of years of emphasis on the real purpose of life.
Yes.
Even though to some extent in the last 100 years it's kind of been lost, but even now there's a great revival of these things in India, because people are understanding, and I think ultimately as a result of Srila Prabhupada, that Indian culture and Indian society has its essence in spiritual life, and the best way to promulgate this understanding is to actually live it. And so many people know that now. I mean, from when I first went to India in the early 70s to when I last went to India a few years ago, it's totally different, completely different. In the early 70s, everything was looking to Nehru and the awakening of like a bright, like modern materialistic future. That was generally the atmosphere. There were, I was at temple, so there were spiritual people around then. But if I would go into town to the American Express office or something, I would find, so many people who lived in India, totally caught up in, materialistic ideas, like coming up to me, seeing my robes, and challenging me about it. And of course I would defeat them, which was difficult for them to handle, but it was happening because the true teachings of Indian culture were given to us by Srila Prabhupada, perceived by a small percentage of those in India, especially at the time when Prabhupada came to America in the mid-60s. He was, because that truth is not like just rote intellectual stuff. It's actually a spiritual transmission from the heart of the pure Vaishnava to the heart of the sincere disciple. And that's there in all the scriptures, you can see it. And it practically is there in the application of Krishna consciousness based on the teachings of our gurus. And I saw it then in the 60s. And I see it now, you know, all the way up to like 60 years later. It's still alive.
I have a question. So when you say it's not like you're not like being for eternal hell, you get a chance to come back. Is that for everyone, or like it's different for people who do like heinous crimes, like terrorists, rapists, and all of those people?
Heinous crimes, they have to stay perhaps much longer.
Okay, but they also get a chance.
They also get a chance, of course. I mean, otherwise, what does it mean God is merciful? He's going to send you to hell forever? It doesn't make sense, actually.
I like that Krishna reminds us in this chapter, like even these demoniac persons, I am present with them as the super soul.
That's
They're
true.
ignoring
Right.
me, but I'm present with them.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
And one time I heard about, I was looking at something about, it was a Russian a documentary on historical, Catherine the Great, basically. And the kinds of punishments that they used to give in those days was really nasty. And then it was really distressing me. I felt really disturbed by even knowing that such a thing was there. But then I realized, you know, what does it take to bring a person to his knees? What does it take to awaken a little sweetness of humility in the heart of someone? It may take a lot. You know, just to come to your senses and have a bit of humility, you know, that may take a lot. And so there may be some length of time of some kind of, you know, rectification. We're all going through some rectification, no doubt. But, you know, for those who have been inconceivably cruel, like just horrible, I mean, that mentality is not going to get broken like so quickly. Just
It's
by
important for us to not lose context in the Gita, because Krishna's already explained to Arjuna what actual reality is. Reality is ultimately consciousness. So the things that are happening to quote-unquote punish you, as Saraswati Thakur has very brilliantly pointed out, they're not there to punish you.
Right.
It's not like you do this thing.
Yeah.
Because we have a kind of way that we think in our head. It's like, well, you do that crime, you do 5 years. You do that crime, you do 8 years.
Yeah.
It's not like that.
Right.
What's actually necessary is there needs to be a conscious adjustment.
Yeah.
And the karma is there to make that conscious adjustment.
Right.
When the person makes the karmic adjustment, the karma's finished.
Yeah.
So the punishment is coming, and it can be quite heavy, you know, to our eyes. But actually the only thing that's happening is in the conscious plane. And that person who did so many cruel acts, let's just say, for example, they may have to experience cruelty before they even have empathy grow within them.
Yeah.
Where they realize, like, oh my God, I did this to other people.
Yeah.
You know, after you suffer so much yourself, you might think, wait, I was doing this to other people. Oh my, am I bad? You know, like you might get there, but that's somewhere. You just got somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point of it. The point of it is not just to, like, you know, you did this, now you get that. But it's merciful. It's to uplift you. It's to make you change in the conscious plane. Because remember, consciousness is reality.
Yeah.
This is just the phenomenon that we're bound and experiencing.
It's so, I find this super important to remember these things, because I have a tendency to look at so much different kinds of suffering and really get distressed by it. And I think that now when I can remember, this is all positive adjustment. Giving it that chance. What is that chance? that you can be adjusted, and I will not give up on that. Even the material nature will adjust us, and that is a positive thing. And so Guru Maharaj said, actually, in the absolute vision, there is no such thing as punishment. It is all positive. Like you will give some adjustment to a child. Maybe somebody walks in the room, oh, why are you scolding that child so much? And another person who knows the child says, she's being too easy on him, or something like that. But this is all done in hope and affection and upliftment, hope, to give a chance that again you'll come to human life. Again you may come in touch with the great Vaishnava, and you may begin your spiritual coming back to come to consciousness of me.
When I hear about this, I always kind of like envision in my mind stuff from, what I've seen in movies and so many things like that, that the Nazis are torturing someone, the Soviets are torturing someone, to a lesser extent, the Allies are torturing someone. Anyway, the idea being that they need to hear some essential information. So, like in a similar way, these punishments come to us, like I was saying, to result in our, uttering and realizing some higher truth about, the experience of being in the material world. It's all like a higher arrangement intended to bring out a positive result in us. So in that way, we don't have to see it as just a negative, punishment with no foundational reason.
Just the vindictive.
Right.
And it's critical. We have to reach this point, otherwise our own life becomes very incoherent.
Yes.
Right? Because we're not innocent either.
Yeah,
Right.
That's true.
Right?
Always
It's easy to look at everyone else and be like, ooh, that guy's bad.
Yeah.
That guy really needs some serious punishment.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we're doing the same thing as, that other shloka where we're like looking in the mirror and going, well, I was awesome today, and I'm going to be awesomer tomorrow. I mean, there's just no doubt about that. You know what I mean? And,
it's true.
we're that guy
Yeah.
to a certain extent,
Yeah.
right? We're not looking in the mirror and going, damn, I need some punishment too. But we do, and it's going to come.
And it's coming mercifully.
And can you endure that without complaint?
Yeah.
Can you see the positivity within that? Actually, I mean, it's a really almost impossible book to read, but if you read Solzhenitsyn, right? Crime and Punishment. I mean, it's like, okay.
No, it's a Gulag Archipelago.
I mean, sorry, Gulag Archipelago. Like, he's in a gulag, and he's faithful. And he's going you're talking about tortures. Like, he's seeing this on a daily basis, the cruelty that man can afflict on another man, in fresh, new, fascinating ways. Okay? And he's going, God put me here. Why? How is it possible that I deserve this? And that question is his meditation throughout the whole journey of the book.
Hare Krishna.
And he reaches a positive conclusion. And that is like the key. Guru Maharaj says, you are always in the Madhyama stage until you stop your complaining nature. You cannot complain about the circumstance that you're in.
Yeah.
See that it's positive for you, and that something good that is adjusting you is coming.
Yeah.
Now you can actually move into the plane of reality.
Right.
So it's not just us. It's not just everyone else.
Right.
It's us who are receiving mercy
Right.
in the form of some progressive experiences.
Yeah. Haribol.
I was thinking that, that kind of realization, of a prisoner to that degree and to that extent, if you look back at World War II and after that, there was probably millions of prisoners in a similar condition or worse But you know, how many actually came to that conclusion? It's very rare and very perceptive. Maybe some did, but generally that wasn't the case. That this circumstance is so terrible for me, but actually there's a purpose behind it. It's not easy to
Have
come
that perspective.
to. Yeah, any one of us who's been in a very difficult, painful situation, it's actually hard to remember the proper spiritual perspective. It's different. It's not easy.
No, it is the supreme. It's the supreme practice.
Yeah. And you know, so that kind of circumstance and that kind of situation and the results that Sultanitya came to is, you know, it's almost like worshipable, actually.
Yeah, it
It's
takes much.
amazing.
He must have had so much Sukriti to have that kind of perspective, because you must see that you have a journey that has nothing to do with this body. You have to have that perspective in order to have that conclusion. You must know that this life is for something which is super progressive, in order to even for that to occur to you, because most of these guys that came back from war came back and became drunks and cruel. They became, because they couldn't accept it. And you know, you can become mad when your circumstances are very hard and you will not accept it. It can cause mental damage, and it's inflicted by our own lack of what do you call that? Flexibility. When you will not move and bow down and say, yes, my Lord, this is good. And this is a hard practice, but this is the essence of our practice.
Okay, guys, pop quiz. Don't look at the book. What are the 3 gateways to hell?
Anger, lust, greed.
Dang.
Whoa! All right.
And what are the 3 things that should never be abandoned according to Sri Krishna? Yajna, dana, tapa.
Hari Dev knows.
Austerity, charity,
And
Austerity.
sacrifice.
Sacrifice. Okay, so those are the antidotes. Lust, anger, greed, hell. Austerity, charity, sacrifice. Word. Okay, then last 2 shlokas. Yah shastra vidhin utsrijya vardate kamacharta nasa siddhim mavapnoti nasukham na param gatim tasmat shastram parante karya vyavastitao gyatva shastra bhavanoktam kamakartum iharasi Iti Shri Mahabharate Shatasasram Samhitayam Gayasikyam Bhishma Parvani Srimad Bhagavad-Gita Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Daivasura Sampad Vibhaga Yogo Nama Shodasho Jaya.
O Kanteya, one who is liberated from these 3 doors of darkness strives for the benefit of the soul, by which he attains the supreme destination. One who acts according to his own desires, disregarding the scriptural injunctions, cannot attain perfection, happiness, or the supreme destination. Therefore, the scriptural injunctions for duty and non-duty are your authority. Knowing your duty in this world, according to the scriptures, to act only for the Lord's pleasure, you should act accordingly.
You can read the last part too, Asha.
End of chapter 16, the godly and ungodly natures, from the conversation of Sri Krishna and Arjuna in Srimad Bhagavad-Gita Upanishad, the Yoga scripture of transcendental knowledge, in Bhishma Parva of Sri Mahabharata, the holy scripture revealed by Srila Vyasadeva in 100,000 verses.
Jai Shri Krishna.
So, end of this is Krishna saying what we talked about before. There are regulations given in the scriptures. And there are many regulations, and there's regulations given in every faith. There are also regulations given in our Vaishnava practice. And they're high regulations that most people would find very difficult to follow. But there's 4 regulative principles that we talk about. And there's other principles that you follow Why? To regulate your mind. Krishna's saying, you see what happens when you just lose your regulation? Yes, Shastra Vidhim. There's Vidhi given in the Shastra. There's some regulation for you. And Utsrija means if you abandon that, you're not going to go anywhere. You're not going to attain perfection. You have to start on this path of self-regulation. This thing has to be explored. You have an urge. You have a higher commandment. You're going to control that urge in service of that higher commandment. What does that mean? What is that battle that has to happen inside of you to do that? To shut a part of you down that is a very strong animalistic push inside of yourself and pursue something higher that's very, in some ways, hard to see, hard to understand, right? You're casting yourself toward faith, and you're shutting down something very primal inside of yourself. Why? You have to know the answer to those things. Otherwise, you're not going to feel what actual progress is. But ultimately, that is not the supreme destination. Krishna's saying, if you want to move out of that lower plane, go through regulation. But ultimately, in the highest plane, he already explained in chapter 10, these things are not the permanent position. They're the position of the Madhyama stage. Madhyama stage means you have to see good and you have to see bad.
Right.
You have to regulate yourself.
Right.
And then ultimately, Bhagavad-Bhakti Sarvam iti utsrija vidhirapi. Utsrija vidhi. So Krishna is saying, Yashastra vidhim utsrija. Those who abandon the vidhi of the Shastra.
Right.
But then ultimately, in the highest stage, the Shastra vidhi is not serving you because you're connected to what is the will of the Lord.
Right.
So then in our intermediate stage, we really, we can't take these things lightly.
Yeah.
You might think, oh, I'm just going to get high, or I'm just going to get drunk, or I'm just going to do this, or I'm going to do that, or blah, blah, blah. It's like, man, you slip on that stairway, and you're going to slide. Like, just be really careful with organizing your life and regulating yourself and keeping your vow. And also keeping your vow is a very high practice. That's a very important thing to do. You make a commitment, you follow it.
Yeah.
Now see what kind of, stones you have to traverse, what kind of thorny road you have to traverse to keep your commitment.
And to make
It's going to be good.
to make your that vidhi or those regulations are to cleanse all the nastiness, because that heart, that nasty selfish heart cannot enter the divine plane. There is no nastiness there. There's no ego. There's no pride or wanting anything. It's just this heart-melting urge for giving. And that can come in so many forms, like the cowherd boys. We think the cowherd boy, like the way they do in the cartoon. The cowherd boys are bad. They just take a tiger and slap him across the face and ride on a cobra. And, they're like, but their hearts are melted with devotion. So greatness in so many manifestations. But that selfish heart, that's weak. There's no place there for that.
So we all have vows. We understand, right? We've made commitments. We've made vows, and ultimately those are for our own good. And ultimately they're all moving in Sri Radha Pada Sevana.
Haribol.
And Rupa Goswami himself says, "Say vrata, say tapa." Vrata means vows. All my vows. Say tapa, all my austerity. Say more mantra japa, right? Say more Vedero Dharma, all the Dharma of the Vedas, all my mantra japa, all my vows. Everything ultimately is culminating in her feet. So when we follow that, it's not just to follow it. It's this willing offering of ourselves in the hope that we may have actual service one day.
Haribol.
That's a beautiful life.
Jai.
Okay. Jai Shri Krishna Arjuna ki jai.
Jai.
Bhagavad-Gita Upanishad ki jai.
Jai.
That chapter is pretty heavy.
It's so
Jai
good.
Kurukshetra
So,
Dham ki Jai. Jai Rupanuga Guru Varga ki Jai.
Jai.
Shri Bhakti Sundar Govind Dev-Goswami Maharaj ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai Krishna Paramahansa Thakur Sri Bhakti Raksak Sridhar Dev-Goswami Maharaj ki Jai.
Jai.
Nitai Go Jai Srila Bhakti Vigraha Nyasi Maharaj ki Jai.
Jai.
Nitai Go Premanande.
Hari.
Jai Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhu ki Jai. Jai. Go
Jai.
Premanande. Hari Bol. Hari Bol. Okay, quick kirtan. Hari Haraya Namo Krishna Radharaya Namo Hari Haraya Namo
All devotees assembled online.
Jai.
Oh, yeah. Online.
That means
Joy.
Vibha Krishna Prabhu ki jai.
Bhima Krishna is here. Madhava Priya Devi Dasi is here.
Dhanyavad.
Dhanyavad, devotees.
Hari Bol.
Srilekha.
Hare Krishna.
I forget.